Despite the numbers of plants and animals that we have in the entire universe, they are still being grouped into kingdoms, which are the kingdom Plantae and the kingdom Animalia. This lecture will expose us to the characteristics and the divisions of the kingdom Plantae and kingdom Animalia. Kingdom Plantae, it has 5 subdivisions, which are the Talophyta, the Bryophyta, the Pteridophyta, the Gymnosperm, and the Angiosperm. So all plants that exist, either the green plants or based on any color they assume, they are being classified based on these 3 subdivisions. So every plant that exists throughout the entire universe, they can either fall under the Talophyta, the Bryophyta, the Pteridophyta, the Gymnosperm, and the Angiosperm. So what are the Talophytes? Talophytes, they are plants that has no stem and they has no roots. So when we refer to as Talophytes, these are plants that has no floral parts. So and what do you understand by floral parts? Floral parts are the part of a plant. Example, the stem, the roots, the flower, the fruit, etc. So what are the Bryophytes? Bryophytes, they are also a subdivision of what? Of the kingdom Plantae. And in this aspect of the Bryophytes, they have a differentiated body parts. So in that aspect of Bryophytes, though they have the differentiated body parts, but they lack what we refer to as what? Vascular tissues. So that is what? The aspect of what? Of the Bryophyte. Though they have the differentiated body part, that is, they have the stem, they have the roots, they have the flower, they have the leaves, and they have the fruit, but they lack what we refer to as what? The vascular tissues. And what are the vascular tissues? Vascular tissues are what we refer to as what? The xylem, the phloem, and the cambium. Are we getting it now? So that is what? The aspect of the what? Of the Bryophyte. Though they have the floral parts. And remember when we talk about the floral parts, they are what? The stem, the roots, the flowers, the leaves. So, but what differentiates Bryophyte from Pteridophyte is that in the aspect of the Bryophyte, they do not have what we refer to as what? Vascular tissues. So the first one we talk about is what? Is the Talophyte. So in the aspect of Talophyte, they do not have what? They don't have a differentiated body part. But Bryophytes and the Pteridophyte, they have different body tissues, but in Bryophyte, they do not have what we refer to as what? Vascular tissues. But in the aspect of the Pteridophytes, they have a differentiated body parts. They have what we call the vascular tissues. And what are the vascular tissues? They are the what? They are the xylem, they are the phloem, and the cambium. But in the aspect of the Pteridophyte, the Pteridophyte do not have what we refer to as what? Seeds. I get it now. They do not have what we refer to as what? Seeds. So that is the aspect of what? Of the Pteridophyte. But the another one that has seeds, their general name is called the what? The phanerograms. So under the phanerograms, it cannot be subdivided into 2, which are the what? The Gymnosperm and the Angiosperms. So in the aspect of the Gymnosperms, these are plants that they have a differentiated body part, they have vascular tissues, they produce seed, but the seed that they produce, they are what? They are naked seeds. That is the aspect of the what? Of the Gymnosperm. But in the aspect of the Angiosperms, they have a differentiated body part, they have vascular tissues, they produce it, and the fruit that they produce, they bear seed inside the fruits. Again, so in the aspect of the Angiosperm cannot be subdivided into 2, which are the what? The monocots and the dicots. So angiosperm, I said they are what? They are plants that produce seed, and their seed is found inside the what? The fruits. And these angiosperm are subdivided into two. Number one we talk about is the monocot. From the word mono means one, cot means what? Seed, from the word monocotyledons. And the second one is what? Dicotyledons. So those are the two subdivisions of what? Of the angiosperm, which is what? The monocot and the dicot. So the subdivisions of the plant kingdom, they are what? The thallophytes, the bryophytes, the pteridophytes. We have the phanerogams, and the phanerogams is now subdivided into what? The gymnosperm and the angiosperm. Whereas the angiosperm is now also subdivided into what? The monocot and the dicot. So this explains the kingdom Plantae. Now we move on to kingdom Animalia. Every organism that exists in the animal kingdom, they are referred to as what? The kingdom Animalia. So in this kingdom Animalia, we shall be looking at the various diversity of what? Of kingdom Animalia. So what are the general characteristics of kingdom Animalia? Number one is that they are heterotrophs. And what they say by heterotrophs, they do not produce their own food by themselves, but they depend on green plants. Number two is that they are eukaryotic, they are multicellular, they have no cell wall, they are motile, and they have sense organ. So in the aspect of kingdom Animalia, we have two phylum. We have the vertebrate and we have the invertebrate. So of all the kingdom so they can be divided into two categories, the vertebrate and the invertebrate. So the invertebrate, the percentage of species 95%, while vertebrate, they are what? Just 5%. So, and what are vertebrate? Vertebrate are animals with backbones, and invertebrates are animals without backbones. So let's take a brief examples or a brief classes or brief phylum of what? Of the invertebrates. We have the Porifera, we have the Cynindras, we have the Platyhelminthes, we have the Nematode, we have the Annelids, we have the mollusk, we have the arthropod, and we have the echinoderms. So those are the what? The phylums of the what? Of the invertebrates. Remember, invertebrates are what? Animals without backbone. So let's look at a brief characteristics of few of these what? Of this invertebrate. The first one is what? Annelids. Example we talk about what? Is earthworm, leech, and the first thing is what? They have a soft, moist body wall through which they can what? They can breathe. And also we have what? The arthropods. In the aspect of the arthropods, we have example like what? The crab, we have the millipede, we have the centipede, we have the mosquito, we have the butterfly, and we have the spider, and we have the scorpion. So these are the what? The various classes of what? Of the arthropods. They are also called what? The arthropoda. So we have the crustacean, we have the Meropoda, we have the insecta, and we have what? The arachnida. So those are the classes. And next we talk about what? Is the mollusca. Example we talk about what? Is snail. We have the octopus. And what are the characteristics? That they give birth by laying eggs. And they have their body as what? As a soft body, but not what? Not segmented. So those are the what? The few characteristics of the mollusk. Then we now talk about what? The echinodermatous. So example they will talk about what? The starfish. We have the sea urchins, and we have the sea cucumber. And what are the few characteristics? That they move with the help of what? Of 2 feet. So those are the what? The characteristics of echinodermatous. Then we now move on to vertebrate. Remember I said vertebrate are animals with what? With backbones. Now, what are the examples of vertebrates? We have the fishes, we have the amphibians, we have the reptiles, we have the birds, and we have the mammals. And their body symmetry is what? Is bilateral. And digestion is by what? By one way. After engulfing the food, it passes down through the alimentary canal and goes out through the anus. And their endoskeleton, that is, their body, their skeleton is inside. And they exhibit a closed circulatory system. Now let's take a brief look at what there are various characteristics of fishes. Fishes are also called what? Pisces. Fish are also called what? Pisces. And we have various fish. We have the shark, we have the tilapia fish, we have the starfish. So as many fish as you can mention. And in the one of the characteristics of fish is that they possess gills, and the gills is used for what? For respiration. They also possess fins for what? For swimming in the what? In the water body. And they also what? Cold-blooded animals. And they are aquatic in nature. That is, their habitat is inside what? Inside water. And they give birth by what? By laying eggs. And their body is covered with what? With scales. That is, that scale, it helps them to regulate what? The body temperature inside the water. The next one we talk about is what? The characteristics of amphibians. And what are the examples of amphibians? We have the frog, we have the toad, we have the salamander. So what are now the characteristics of the class of amphibians? Then we now talk about what? The reptiles. Example of reptiles, we have the lizard, we have the turtle, we have the snake, we have the crocodile, we have the tortoise. So any animal that creeps on the floor, they are regarded as what? Reptiles. And they are also cold-blooded animals. They breathe through their what? Through their lungs. And the next one we talk about what is apes. Apes are also regarded as what? As birds. We have the hen, we have the pigeon, we have the peacock, we have the duck, we have the sparrow. As many birds that we can mention. And they are what? Warm-blooded animals. So only birds and mammals are regarded as what? Warm-blooded animals. And their body is covered with what? With feathers. And lastly, we'll be talking about what? The basic characteristics of mammals. Example, they will talk about cow, lion, elephant, whale, there. Even human being, including you and I, we belong to the what? To the class of mammals. So our body is covered with what? With hairs. They are what? Warm-blooded animals, and they give birth to their young ones alive. Unlike all other classes of animals that they lay egg, but in the aspect of mammals, they give birth to their young ones alive. Are you getting it? Usually they have what? Tails, and they have 4 limbs, which are what? The 2 legs and the 2 hands. So is it that we call it 4 limbs and the hind limbs? Are you getting now? So that is the aspect of what? The characteristics of mammals. And in the aspect of mammals, young ones, they suck milk from the mammary gland present in mother. You remember, unlike in the other aspect of what? Of mammals, whereby they just lay eggs. But in the aspect of mammals, after giving birth to their young ones alive, they still suck milk from the mammary gland. So the mammary gland, it can be referred to as what? The breast. So they suck milk from the mammary gland of their mother. I hope you've learned a lot from this lesson. Kingdom Plantae and Kingdom Animalia. So this is where we come to the end of the class, and I hope you've learned a lot. Till we see in our next class. Bye for now. Bye.